everybody. Who all is here? Hey, Bruce. Happy Saturday. Should be Straturday. I should have pulled my Strat out because I want to kind of mess with Hendrix, but I literally just put strings on this guitar and wanted to try them out. Anybody like use the same brand or type of strings for a couple decades and then discover that you have to make a change because you can't find your favorite strings anymore? That's this guy. So I'm actually using, I usually use the Gibson Vintage Reissue 10s. And they are pure nickel. I like the pure nickel. But they're hard to get. They're also expensive, but I'm not really as concerned about what they cost as much as how they feel and play and last. But I went shopping for strings and could not find them in 10s and just decided that maybe it was time to make a change. So I'm trying the Diodarios. I use the Diodario Chromes on my jazz guitar. And I think I'm still using, I don't know if I'm using Ernie, but it's been so long since I've restored my acoustic. But if I could switch over to the Diodarios, it would make life easier because they're easier to get and they're cheaper. But the weirdest thing, like I put the strings on last night and then picked the guitar up this morning to play a few notes on it and thought that I had swapped the E and the B strings around. It was really hard to bend on the first string. And I looked and I did it right. These also have slightly lighter bass strings, which I don't know if I really care about. At first I thought I was going to be kind of upset about having the lighter bass strings. I was watching Pete Thorne and Dave Friedman do this Van Halen thing where they were like basically taking all of the gear and they rebuilt a Plexi Marshall, and Pete restrung some of his guitars with the kind of strings, because I guess Eddie used these Fender strings that were available in the 70s that were like 9 to 40 or something. I mean, they're light top and even lighter bottom, but that was part of the sound. So I figured, it's probably not that big of a deal. But it is a little weird. The biggest thing to me is I like pure nickel strings. That's kind of what the Gibson Vintage Reissue ones were. And I've tried other ones and not really been in love with how the other brands have felt. I don't know why. And the Gibsons I think are made by DR strings. They're not like, Gibson's not like, rolling their own or anything like that. But I just always felt like those were the strings. So I figured I'd put some of the Diodarios on this one. All my guitars are in dire need of new strings right now, so I figured I would get 3 sets and do like this one and McFeely and maybe my Les Paul. And just kind of see, live with them for a month or so before investing in a bunch of strings. So Tom says, have you mixed different brands on a guitar? Like different, like Ernie Ball and Diodario or something like that? On the same guitar? I've never done that. Not intentionally. I've had to do that on gigs where like I've broken a string. And, you the only set you have with, with a working D string is from some other brand or something like that. But I've never really experimented too much with strings. I kind of figured that whoever figured this out, decades ago probably knew what they were doing. So this is, it's just a little weird. I don't know. I can feel a difference there. I'm not sure I like it or not. So before I get rolling, I woke up this morning and thought, you know what, it'd be fun to talk about some Hendrix today. I've been doing all kinds of other things, and Saturdays is kind of supposed to be a grab bag anyway. But I figured I'd start by letting you guys ask questions if you had them. I'm actually playing through my little pedal board today. Let's see. Just so you get so I got that one because the big one is getting prepped for surgery. And I'll probably make a video about what happens there. As it happens. The big thing is I'm not like getting much new stuff. I've got like one pedal that I just got, the Archer, which is kind of like a Klon thing. And I was thinking about maybe adding one. I've got one spot that's open, and we can't, nature abhors a vacuum, as they say. And I thought maybe I would get something that was more fuzzy or dirty or something like that, but I haven't really decided. Every time I buy a fuzz pedal, I end up getting rid of it. But I'm also not really using this on gigs right now. I'm kind of like enjoying the fact that because I don't have gigs, I can kind of just build a pedal board. It sounds around like what I'd use for recording or what I'd like to play, and then deal with the ramifications of live performance, in the spring or whenever it is I actually get back to playing. So that's the pedal board thing. But the pedal board, actually, I've got this big sheet of plastic here. This was actually it was a piece of a shipping container in my father-in-law's business, and he cut it to size, so now I'll have a flat deck to go over top of the pedal board, and then I can put my pedals anywhere I want to, not just where the rails on the pedal train will dictate. So I want to talk about the solo on All Along the Watchtower today, but I want to do it in a way that doesn't get me a copyright strike. So I'm not gonna play the original recording. I'm not really gonna show the sheet music, but I'll write some of the stuff out in tab. The reason why I love teaching All Along the Watchtower is because there's like 5 perfect little solos in it. It's really cool. You've got the introduction solo. Here, let me oops. We'll do it in the written key. All right. And what's cool about that, there's a couple things that I've got old stuff here. One of the things that I like about that right off the bat is that even though he's playing in C sharp minor, it's mostly the minor pentatonic. The very first bend is not to a note in that minor pentatonic, it's up a whole step to the 9th. So if he was going, he's bending up to the D sharp right there. So it's more of a color note. All right. Rhythmically, there's so much of this that's like in the pocket, and this has always been a good lesson to teach when I want to get people thinking about playing rhythms in time as a single note player, as a soloist, or in terms of bending things to notes that are not typical in your pentatonic scale, like when you've got he's got a lot of these like 1.5 bends and things like that going on. We'll talk about that in a second. What's great about this first solo, let's talk about the different kinds of bends in the beginning. Right, so what he's doing is he's bending the 14th fret. We're doing this as if it's tuned down a half step. So I'm in standard tuning right now. Hendrix is tuned down a half step. So even though it looks like he's in C sharp, and even though I'm playing in C sharp, the recording is actually in C minor. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right, so we're bending the root up a whole step multiple times. And he does that articulation. So he's just bending straight up. Now when you bend, I have a lot of students where they only bend like one way. It's just like, this is physically how I push the note. And I think what is important to remember is that bending is just a way of articulating notes from one pitch to another. And there's a lot of ways you can bend. You can bend straight up. You can go slow. You can pre-bend it. You can bend up to a note and back down. You bend up, pick it, bring it down. Right? And he kind of goes through all of the different permutations of this in this solo. So it's a great exercise. After the lesson, I'll post a link to where you guys can get the sheet music for this. I'll find it like on Amazon and on like Music Notes, where you can, on Music Notes, you can actually just buy the PDF for like $5 or something like that. I don't make any money off of it, but it's actually a good transcription. I tell my students, if you're going to ask me questions about a song and you show up with anything printed off Ultimate Guitar, you can just go home. The old school tablature stuff is really a waste of time and will not give you any of this kind of detail that we need to talk about in terms of what we're doing here. So there's that. So you got the bends up, where he's bending right up to the pitch, a whole step, and then and he's got a quick up and down right there. It's just 16th notes. And then, all right, this one's cool because he's basically bending up to the G sharp really quick. And then back down to the F sharp, then back up to the G sharp. It couldn't, I'll just as well be, it could be just that much. Alright, just gotta get that bend there, but then he does this thing where it's hammer and pull. So say we're playing in C sharp minor pentatonic. The notes on the second string would be the 5th, which is on the 9th fret, and the 7th, the minor 7th, which is on the 12th fret. Right, he's actually doing the hammer and pull on the 11th fret, which is the major 6th, which gives us almost kind of a Dorian thing. It's, I don't know, he tends to play notes outside of the scales that sound good. We can analyze the heck out of these notes and, you know, come up with a justification for everything. But I think most of the time he just, his ear said that, hey, this sounds cool. There's a bunch of stuff on Purple Haze that's kind of like that too. So that's the first one. And what's great about this, like I said before, there's like 5 little mini lessons in this song. I almost never teach the rhythm guitar parts. I probably should. But I usually, when I think about this tune, I think about it in terms of each of the little solos. There was the intro. The next one. Alright, you can tell I've taught this a million. I've probably played this song on a gig maybe 3 times. It's never been one I've prepared for a show, but I love teaching and I love learning it, so I know it. As far as this one goes, this has got a bunch of great information. The first part is, you know, we know that Hendrix loves these oblique bends. All right, we're playing the C sharp, we're bending the B up to the C sharp without changing the pitch on that guy. So oblique meaning that one note stays the same while the other one changes. And in this case, they end up becoming the same note. Like even like manic depression. Here's a he does those bends. He does them in a lot of places. And if you're an Iron Maiden fan, was it like a was that Run to the Hills? Those bends are really helpful. I'm going to retune because new strings and all. So he's got that oblique bend that starts it. It's just this great smear of sound. If I put a little overdrive on here, maybe we'll do that to get the sound a little bit more. He does that where it's the bend up and then up and down and then release to here. Now in the music I have, there's a lot of where they show like all of the bits that he ends up like accidentally catching strings by. I generally tend to ignore them, and a lot of times I'll cross these things out in the tab when I'm teaching it. But he's got this right. They actually show it as being those 2 notes. He probably plays those 2 notes. I found with this stuff, if you're too precious about the details, if you really try and make sure that you get every detail note perfect, you'll chase your tail forever and not really you'll never get the whole thing. What you want to do is you want to make sure you listen to these as melodies, right? Instead of just being jams. I mean, each of these, this song took him like 6 months to record from what I remember. It really is a masterpiece, like the whole thing, all the production. I think one of the guys from Traffic is playing bass on it. or played bass on it at some point. Someone's playing rhythm guitar on it. That's not him. He did a lot of overdubs, but this is a really well crafted tune. And for me, like on something like this, if I'm learning it for myself, I try and sing it. I want to have the melody in my head. Partially because when you look at the tablature, there's so much information in there, and some of it's not really that important to producing the actual melody. And if you heard him play it 10 times, it probably wouldn't be played with those exact little bits and pieces and details the same way every time, but the melody would be there. Woo! Right? Not in tune, not in key, doesn't matter. But I know the basic, the layout or the landscape of the melody, and it helps me when I'm actually trying to figure out what notes I need to focus on out of the printed page, out of the tablature, right? And it lets me distill this down to like what's really going on. All right, so all right, that bend there. All right, he actually doesn't hit it at the top. A lot of times I'll hit it again, but he's just going. When he brings it down, he does a pull off to the 9th fret, and there. All right. Up a whole step bend, and then he does another one of these up and down bends, and then now there's vibrato on this stuff. And for me, when I'm vibratoing a note at the top of a bend, it's not really about like, all right, I'm not thinking that I have to move the fingers a ton so that I get this really wide vibrato. Really what's happening is I'm kind of moving the whole guitar with my hand. You kind of see the whole thing move. I remember being a teenager and watching, after there was USA for Africa, like the fundraisers for African hunger relief or whatever. There's one that all the metal bands did right after called, it was like called Headbangers for Hunger or some stupid thing like that. And they had this song called Stars, and there was a video about the making of it. And naturally, it was like 20 minutes long, and every famous shreddy guy at the time got to take a solo. And I remember watching Yngwie Malmsteen play, and I remember him playing and just watching, like whenever he'd vibrato a note, the headstock would move around. Right? It wasn't like the guitar stayed perfectly still. And he was trying to make that move. He was getting this a little bit more natural sound because everything kind of moved together. And as a young player, that was kind of an important realization, right? If it all moves together, it just sounds better to me, at least, right? So kind of think about that with the vibratos. All right, so, and then we've got these 1.5 bends. All right, where you really want to make sure, because there's so many where he's bending up a whole step on that note. You want to make sure that you can nail those pitches. One of the great lessons out of this song. All right, so that's something to kind of think about. Is always make sure that you know the pitch that you're bending to, especially when you're doing 2 different pitches off of the same fretted note, either a whole step or a 1.5, that minor third. All right. After this comes the little 16th note bit. That to me, all right. I don't even teach that whole lick, like with the pickup phrase. That part is cool because it's kind of syncopated. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and so you got the bend on the end of 3. But the actual phrase, there's one measure. I'm going to give you guys a peek at this. I don't know if I should be sharing the... Yeah, nail pitches. Pitches love being nailed. Well, actually, you know what? I bet you I could do it here, and it'd be easier. Aha. All right. I got all these leftover things here. So what I'm really looking at is this bit here. Actually, if I turn this, I can get a little bit more focused. All right, and what's super cool about this, and I'll write on this, is that you can divide this really long lick up into, let's get rid of this, into beats. Here we go. All right. This is, I wouldn't feel guilty if you guys took a screenshot of what I'm about to do here. So we're going to divide, oops, that's not the right one. That's too far. Here we go. No, yeah. So we can divide this up into 4 individual beats. And if you practice these while conceptualizing them as separate or individual beats, it makes life a lot easier. And if I do counting here, 1, and they got a 16th notes, but ultimately if you think 1 and, right there, that'll work out the best. Right, and then the rest of this is 2E and 3E and 4E and all right. It's not completely sequential, where it's super easy to, like a sequential meaning like going down in patterns of 4. It's not like that, but you can break it up. Like I'll think 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1. All right, and then the second one, 1, 2E and a 3, 4. 1, 2E and a, right? So I've got that block right there, 2E and that bend has to be a 16th note, right? One of the things that really messes people up is the fact that they want to drag that bend out, and it's really, or is really the sound. Right, so 1, 2E and a 3, 4, 1, 2E and a 3, 4. Let me turn the delay off. I've got this El Capistan that I love so much, and I have it on right now because it makes everything sound better. It's like audio hot sauce or audio ketchup. So if we combine the first two, 1 and 2E and a 3, 4, 1 and 2E and a 3, 4, 1 and 2E and a 3, 4. The idea being we're going to learn it in small bits, and then we put it all together. So beat 3, 3E and right, 9, 9, 12, 9. So 1, 2, 3E and notice that I'm alternate picking all this stuff for the most part. You'll see this kind of goes by the wayside, I think, in the last one of these. Okay, actually that right there I end up. I try and teach this stuff all alternate picking, but the reality is when you're really playing it and it goes by really quick. Actually, it's a little bit easier to kind of sweep or pick all one direction through those notes. So there is that. So I'm going down, down, and then up, down there. 1, 2, 3E and a 4. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4. All right. Always do these in the context of the measure while you're counting the beats. So then I put it all together with the first two beats. 1, 3, 4. 1 and 2E and a 3E and a 4. 1 and 2E and a 3E and a 4. 1 and 2E and a 3E and a 4. 1 and 2E and a 3E and a 4. All right, and then the last part. Oh, I've always done this as a bend. But they've got it. And honestly, it sounds the same way, so you can play it however you want to. Right? But what I might do is go 1, 2, 3E and a 4E and a 1, 2, 3E and a 4E and a. And just take the last two beats and make sure I get the transition from one beat segment to the other in time, and then I put it all together. 1, 2, 1 and 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1. Whoops. Not doing that bend there, because normally I would, which I just kind of like the sound of a little bit better. The idea is that I can always take, actually, let me play backing tracks off my phone here. I'm going to take I'll take one of my own C sharp minor backing tracks here. First thing I do is connect this to that. Alright, so I'm going to go into the single chord playlists here. Alright, and these single chord backing tracks are really, they're designed so I can practice anything without worrying about the harmony. Alright, so where's C sharp? D sharp. I'm losing my mind. A sharp, B, C. Oh, hey, this one's got the wrong name on it. Oh. Can you guys hear that okay? So, let's see. I'll play the whole solo over this. 3, 4. For a second. Kind of an important thing for me, not only when I'm teaching, but when I'm working on my own stuff, is this idea of synthesis. The idea that I can take something I learn, and if I can move it into a different context or format, then I really know it. Right, so I've got that backing track, right? The next idea might be, let's put it into a different key. Let's do it... do it in G minor. Oops. Let's put it over some other kind of backing track. All right, so this one's in B flat minor. Not too different. But this one's totally different groove in E. 1, 2, 3. Kind of alter it a little bit, right? But if you can make music out of something in different contexts, then you know you really own it. If you're just playing it by rote and you're not able to move it in a different key or have it settle against a different groove or rhythmic background, or be able to alter it in any way to make it fit a new setting, then you don't really have it. It's not really useful to you, right? So I'll have people take licks like this and then put them over all kinds of different backings. Let's do something really well, not really messed up, but not funky. That's too much of the same. Out of the backing tracks here. Okay, so let's do it in a major and see what happens. We'll do C major, and we'll look at it 2 different ways. Alright, so that is the minor over that. That would work. Or, Alright, in this context, if I'm playing the licks from the minor in the major, when I do the whole step bend, that's the major 7th of the C chord. When I do the 1.5 steps of the minor 3rd, then that note is the root, which gives us a completely different contour of tension. You know, it wants to resolve in different places. But that's part of what's cool about this, is that by experimenting this way, you're finding ideas in places you wouldn't expect, and ideas that you already know. As you repurpose them into different keys and tonalities and rhythms and all this other stuff, you end up discovering new ways of playing them, or just completely different things. You know, some of my favorite ideas are actually things I've just screwed up from other contexts. If I was to take, where's the jazz ones? So What? A lot of you guys have been working on So What. So we're in D minor. This actually probably be a good one. We're in D. Can you guys hear that? Let me try again. Shift it up a 1/2 step. Alright, when it goes back down, I'll go into some of the other licks. Here we go. So, mess around. I've never played that over that, but I just wanted to give it a try and see what happens. Some of those things were cool. Some of them, the way I played them, I didn't care for, but it kind of gave me ideas for other things that I could do. And some of them were just complete failures, but that's part of what the experimentation's about. I'm going to pause just for a second, see if you guys have any questions. Starting to get used to these strings. Also, if you guys could let me know who's here. I see Tom and Howie and Bruce. I'm assuming you're still here. It's weird, there's less meat on the lower strings. Oscar. Well, that's probably one of the ways to play Hendrix. I like velvet. Velvet bell bottoms. So let me, while you guys are thinking about any possible questions, I'm going to kind of run up to the next next thing that I like to talk about here. Let's see. Okay, more of the same kind of stuff. Hey, Bruce. Cool. You guys have any questions about what we've been talking about to this point? I mean, basically, I'm just kind of going through it and talking about how I like to break it down and how I like to use it with students. But this is such a great song to get under your fingers because it just gives you so much raw material that you can use in other contexts and a lot of stuff to think about. If you can pull this off, then you know you can play single note solo phrases in time at the levels of quarter notes, eighth notes, and 16th notes, or combinations of 16th notes, like 2/16 and an eighth, or an eighth and 2/16. There are eighth note syncopations in it. You've got bending to not only whole step bends, there are no half step bends that I can think of, but there are a lot of minor third bends, which is kind of a big deal, and also pretty useful. How you bend in time, how you target pitched notes. There's a lot of sliding in here. Things like that where he's those kinds of articulations are important, not just playing the note or even right. That's the melody there, right? But what Hendrix is doing, right? That's actually what's giving it kind of its voice and its life right there. So, okay. This is actually, it's funny in the music, this says Coda. I always thought of it just as the third little solo bit. Alright, you can play that single notes. I've always liked actually just bringing the intensity a little bit more. That's always how I've heard it, is more of a strummy kind of thing. But in order to do that, you have to mute the strings that you don't want to hear. All right, so in this context, my first finger, I'm sliding into that 9th fret. All right, my thumb's over the top of the fretboard. That's keeping that guy from ringing. The 5th string doesn't really have a... Actually, I guess my middle finger's kind of touching the 5th string. The 1st finger is doing a lot of the heavy lifting on the muting, right? It's touching the bottom of the 4th string so that doesn't sound. And then the 2nd and 3rd strings are being touched by the bottom of that finger too. So I've got this overdriven or this distorted sound. And even with that, where normally it would be kind of a mess, right, I've got the ability to control or mute that stuff. Whether it's I'm playing solo stuff or I'm playing, like, obviously funky rhythm guitar or any kind of rhythm guitar parts. Right? So much of your muting, your control of the instrument comes from how your fretting hand plays the strings that you don't want to hear. Right? We always think about muting. We think about the picking hand. Right? But the reality is that I think most of the time, right, a lot of that control has to happen more from the fretting hand. Right? You want to be able to play through the strings with that intensity to get that big, compelling sound. But we don't want to have all that messy junk going on, right? So just kind of something to think about. I'm going to be doing a lot more rhythm guitar stuff as the month goes on, and we'll talk definitely about that sort of muting. But you kind of want to think about the fact that, you know, we have hand technique where we want to be very exact, more in lines with like the classical guitar approach, you know, where you're almost like you're holding a bubble and you've got your thumb centered behind the hand, and then you're playing either on the fingertips or you're playing kind of on the side of the fingertip, right? And that way you're getting as precise a sound as you can get, right? And then there's the other idea where in order to play some of these high gain sounds with any kind of intensity, right, you have to be able to beat on the guitar and only sound the things that we want you to hear. Whoops. I've got this overdrive pedal on right now, right? And sometimes, like if you solo up or get to hear any of the like where they take a guitar track and they just play that on YouTube, that kind of deal. You'll hear a lot of like this muting noise and all this stuff, but it's controlled enough that you don't really hear it in the mix for the most part. And I think that's where a lot of like those extra notes and all the weird kludgy things come from within the tablature, right? It's all there, but what we hear and what's important aren't those little, you know, physical asides and noises and things like that that become a great distraction. They're still there, you know, and we have to kind of minimize them. You know, we don't want to hear all that extra junk. So, all right. Question, gentlemen and ladies, hopefully, maybe. So this one is really rhythmic. You know, the first thing that we've got here is what we're just talking about. All right. So he's got this rhythm, 1E and 2. They've got it written 1E and 2E. Oh, with the two up strums there. I don't play it right apparently. All right. It is important if you keep the hand moving all the way through there like you're strumming, you'll actually get that better in time. This articulation right here, try and get that. That's kind of a good important thing to get. There we go. All right. We also have this oblique bend here. You can look at that a couple different ways. I've always left that oblique bend there and just played all those 16th notes. I just like the sound of it. I don't think it matters one way or the other. Just play the way you want it to. This one, starts with an oblique bend, so you have the thicker texture. Alright, up and down. I do that as a pull-off. I'm playing a little bit differently than they've got written there. More whole step bends. Alright, that little bend there is important, but it's kind of almost like an aside. Like it's not really like that important, but you kind of need to have it there in time. And 4. Yeah, this is the part that has always been the challenge for me rhythmically, right? Because if we think about it, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, right? So if we just take it from beat 4, let's just highlight that much of it. 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4, right? You got to get that. If you don't get that, then it doesn't make sense. It's kind of awkward to me, and I see my students struggle with that, especially because we've got this bit here. You just got to make sure you start that one in the right place, which is the and a 2. All right, and then don't start this part. So for me, that's a tricky one. You get that slide into 14. That's a whole step bend there. All right, and we've got this. All right, that's all right there. That's kind of like the Albert King box area. And then here, this is what really kills people. Those bends are great though. He's doing the whole step bend. Now I gotta think about it in context. I'm sorry. There we go. All right. It's weird because I need to be able to hear it all the way through. Can you guys hear the dogs? Apparently the dogs are upset that UPS is here. Or something. Let me pause for you guys' questions. And the dogs. Let them sing. And a tune. I guess this is one way to break in strings. I can hear that the strings are sticking in the nut here. I always say that Hendrix is one of those things I come back to every few years. I always feel like there's something new to hear that I'm not ready for yet. You know, and every once in a while I kind of grow up into it. When we put All on the Watchtower, play a Page of Stairway to Heaven solo in it. Yeah, you know what? Here's the thing with that is that, you know, the part where you do Stairway to Heaven, it's A minor, G, F. Right, so it's if you're in the minor key, right? It's 1 flat 7 flat 6 chord, or 1 7 6 chords, and All on the Watchtower. 1 7 6. Right. So harmonically it's the same, even though rhythmically it doesn't look the same way. So, you know, you can't obviously that. All of that would work over the same thing. It took me a second to remember that. So, like, let's go back to a minor backing track. There's just a couple things to kind of look out for in that. Oops. All right, so nope. Single chord backing tracks. It's funny, I've got this one of these single chord backing tracks in D minor that is like, it's like one of the most popular things on here. So if I just take this A minor one, 2, 3. Hang on a second, I gotta think about everything. Try to do something weird. I can't hear it over this. Shoot. They both work though. The one thing you want to be careful of is that, you know, you've got that F natural, right, which gets that chord there, and you just want to make sure that use your ears to make sure it doesn't interact with it. Oh, so if you do All Along the Watchtower, you can do both songs in the same key, and then it's just one big kind of medley thing. I get that. Yeah. Right, because it literally is the same chord progression. Alright, so now I can... can't end on that note in this backing track. Right. But it works. It totally works. And I forgot about that. Thank you, Oscar. Which means that a lot of those other licks. So all those things from Stairway to Heaven, they're great vocabulary. I especially love the where he's basically playing the F major F major chords in there. For me, building a sound, building a vocabulary to improvise with isn't just about learning scales or doing things like that. Really what's going on is that I'm ingesting other people's vocabulary to learn how to speak. All right. And a lot of like what I've talked about over the last hour is like, hey, let's make sure we know how to play this stuff so it makes sense. And then as it makes sense, let's see how we can use it in other places, right? To me, and I use the chicken soup analogy all the time, right? Developing your sound is like making soup. Now, if we take, a piece of chicken, a carrot, a piece of celery, some garlic, some water, and we just take them individually, and take a bite of all those things, they just taste like their individual components and not really that good by themselves. But if you combine all those components and put them under heat or some kind of pressure over a longer period of time, they break down and they intermingle and they become something else, right? And they become chicken soup, essentially. They become this other thing. Right? Your guitar sound is, your vocabulary, your voice on the instrument is really soup. It's made up of all these ingredients that you've listened to. It's funny because every once in a while people will say something like, hey, you sound like Don Felder or Jeff, not so much Jeff Beck, but Brian May, or they come up with these things that don't sound anything like what I think I sound like. But then I think back to like when I was a little kid, and in the 70s I had a little clock radio, and you'd listen to the radio and you would just hear music of the day, a lot of Queen, a lot of Eagles, a lot of the stuff that was being played on the radio. And that was a time where I religiously listened to music, not as a musician, but just as a fan, just as a kid, really. And what came of that is that I think you kind of get imprinted early on with a little bit of a vocabulary that you hear in your head. It kind of comes out when you play a little bit. Journey, things like that, like stuff I just don't listen to anymore and haven't as an adult very much. But God, who was it? Somebody. Sean Tubbs, someone like that, did a video and he was talking about Lights by Journey. And I was like, God, I could play that solo without learning it because I've heard it so many times. And I really thought about it. And a lot of those all of that kind of major pentatonic playing, that's a lot of what I do all the time. All right, you've got this like built-in internal vocabulary you want to be able to access, and then there's stuff that you want to learn, and the hardest part is getting it from here to under your fingers, and then from under your fingers to being useful in a way that you can utilize that information in your own improvisations or your own solo writing. That's also pretty key to this whole thing. That's kind of where your sound comes from. It's like a sum of all of your experiences. And how successful you are at it kind of comes from how successful you are at not only physically executing the stuff that you learn on the instrument and being able to play what you hear in your head, but also how you can synthesize this information into other contexts. All right? And that's kind of, I think, kind of it. That's when it becomes chicken soup. So, all right, I'm going to pause just for a second. Are you here, Terry, still? Let me just verify that I do not have a 9:30 lesson. I have a jealousy of my student in Ohio who is, I don't think he's doing his lesson today because he's actually gets to go play a gig. And I'm not going to do my weekly complaining about not being able to play gigs, but I will just say I am jealous. So while we're doing that, any other questions? Oh, totally. You know, there's I don't even know if I can play. I don't even remember how the song goes, but he plays all of that. Oh man, I don't even remember. Oh man, it sucks. I don't really know it that well. But I know what you're saying, Oscar. It really is. It's a complete Hendrix kind of thing, and it's cool. It's kind of what I liked about it. It's, you know, like all Journey songs, like lyrically, it's pretty cheesy, but like it's got a really, you know, got a place in my heart. You know, it's just like from those years when I was growing up. Jake Berry, humbuckers for Hendrix. Yeah, what this came down to was the fact that I just put strings on this guitar. It is a P90 though. Or a single coil in a humbucker size. I was going to bring my Strat out and then realized that I just restrung this last night and my Strat had really horrible strings on it. I didn't really want to risk it. Plus it's also got it's an awesome sounding Strat, but it's got Duncan Antiquities in it, and there's no way to deal with some of the noise I get in this space, because this is literally my garage. My studio is my garage, and you guys have probably heard the dogs barking. It sounds like the neighbor across the street is pressure washing his boat right now. I don't know if you can hear that either. Hopefully you can't. But there's some kind of thing going on out across the street. So it's kind of hard. And then like if I was doing anything with any kind of overdrive sound in here, it'd be super noisy. And on gigs, that's cool because I can get away with it because there's enough ambient noise. And on recordings, I can control it. On webcasts, it's I don't want to subject you guys to all the 60-cycle hum, even though it's a cool 60-cycle hum. So, do you have any questions, Jake? I don't know if we've ever met or if I've seen you on one of these before. So, it looks like I've got time, a little extra time. So if you guys have questions about anything, it doesn't have to be about this. It can be about other tunes, other lessons, guitars, whether or not I have a dog for sale, which may be happening. I'm down for just about anything right now because I got the time. I'm actually using this J Rocket 45 caliber, and I've got two other J Rocket pedals. I got their Archer, the Archer Icon, which I just got, and I really like it. And I've got the Dude pedal, which I love. I use it a lot. It's like my main lead sound. This pedal I got kind of for my small pedal board, which is what I'm playing through because the other one's going to get torn down today. And I kind of thought it'd be cool as a cool rhythm sound. And I guess it would be. It doesn't sound bad at all, actually. But I've got the Revival drive on here, which is kind of like the same thing, but like way better. And I don't know, it's probably my least favorite of the three J Rocket pedals I have. I still want to get their... It's Sean Tubbs. He's costing me money. Like every time I I see something, I want what he's got, because I like the sounds. But this is not bad. I really need to stop complaining about it. Guillermo, thank you, Guillermo. Do you have any questions? Anything I can clarify? I got a little bit of extra time here. I can do other stuff. I can be your guys' music teaching dancing monkey if you want. Like I was saying, my student I'm supposed to have right now is actually not here this week. Anybody have one of these PRS? This is a standard 22. And I've never liked PRS guitars. But this one I picked up in a store, and I loved how resonant it was. Like the body. I picked it up because I like ridiculous looking paint jobs, shiny ones. But I love how it sounds acoustically. But over the couple years I've had it, I'm systematically having to replace everything that's not wood on this guitar as it dies. Like right now, and maybe it's just a little bit of, I might just need some deoxit on that. But like the switch died almost immediately. The pickups, the neck pickup on the stock pickup, like it was stripped and it kept falling into the body. It was a brand new guitar, like literally. Just controls it. It was having difficulty staying in tune. I still struggle with it a little bit. And I've always thought of PRS guitars as being like this really, you know, like the craftsmanship is immaculate because everyone I've played has been like that. And the one that I actually own, I've been really struggling with. And I know this guitar, even though it's an American-made guitar, it's got, I think they kept the price down by putting the import hardware and electronics in it. But holy cow. I'm just tired of, like, fixing this guitar. It's really annoying. But I actually did use the pickup issue because my tech had to solder a nut onto the pickup bobbin for the screw to hold it in, and I thought, you know what, I don't like these pickups anyway, so I ended up getting, and I almost never do this anymore, especially on new guitars. I kind of want to buy a guitar that sounds the way I want it to sound, but a friend of mine works for Railhammer and said, hey, you should check these out. And I've got their P90 kind of thing going on right here, and then their PAF, like the basic PAF thing. It's just that, like, the two weakest pickups they've got, and I really like them. Hey, Robert, or Mike. Like, thanks. I've always I'll post a link to the tab for this. I said earlier in the lesson, I'm not a huge fan of like just regular guitar site tabs, so I'm going to put a link to the music notes one. It's worth spending $5 on this tune. And I talked about 3 of the 5 like little solos in it, and it's got all the rhythm stuff and everything's accurate, which is cool. So I'll post a link for you guys in that. Oscar, PRS 594. Feels small but sounds like a comfortable 57 Les Paul. Is that a single cut or a double cut? I'm not familiar with that model number. Also, you know, it's funny we're talking about humbucker pickups and playing Hendrix, but Gibson just released those. It's the Hendrix Flying V and the Hendrix SG, like custom or whatever, is the 3 pickup SG with gold hardware. You know, and they're like $10,000 each. They're super expensive guitars we'll never own. But like I was looking at those, and I does anybody, Oscar, you might know, what recorded, like album recorded stuff would he have done on a Gibson, or was that stuff just on those last couple of tours? Have I done Little Wing as a lesson, or have I ever played it? See if I remember it. barely remember it. It's been a long time. I'm not entirely certain I understand, Oscar. Have I done Little Wing? It'd be kind of fun to go over that one. The one I really would love to teach is Axis Bold as Love. I don't remember it either. I'd have to relearn it, but it's a good excuse to relearn it. That's one of my all-time favorites. All right. Unless you guys have questions, I'll probably call it. Oh, actually, okay. Let's do this real quick. At the end of this, just texturally, I just kind of, he's got like a couple of these things, like he plays the octaves here. This is always kind of an important thing. I don't remember how this goes. Shoot. He's got the slide bit. But then when he kicks the wah pedal on, the textures that he's kind of working with are kind of cool and something to learn, just basically in terms of coming up with ways of playing parts that are bigger, more interesting textures. So earlier we're talking about strumming on the single notes. He's got this. The octave part right there, right? And if you guys don't know how octaves work, it's basically you're playing a note on one string, and then you're going playing the same note an octave higher, which means that you've gone through all 7 pitches, and you're back to the original pitch, just at a higher frequency. All right. And he's doing the thing that you would do. You'd find this like on funky or disco tunes. I asked you, remember the theme to Chips with a phaser? But basically, that's one way that you can make a note or a part bigger. It's just basically being able to strum it and doing it in 2 octaves. Let's see. Shoot. I don't remember the part. I'm not even going to go into it, but that's part of it. He does some more of the 16th note stuff we talked about. And that's with the wah pedal, right? So with the wah pedal, that sounds pretty cool. He does it again. All right, all of that stuff. I'd have to sit down and actually learn it. But doing that with the wah pedal is pretty cool because what's happening is he's got this kind of asymmetric line, and then the wah pedal is happening in time. All right, and it's just a neat effect. When he gets to the end where it really starts kind of jamming out, I've always loved this bit, right? So we did those lessons on triads a few months ago. And basically we've got our chord progression we talked about. So C sharp minor, B major, A major. So that's the 1 chord, the flat 7 chord, the flat 6 chord, or 1, 7, and 6 in the key of C sharp minor. And he's taking as a melody note, a note a whole step above the root, right? So here's the root. And he's strumming it like that. Same thing with this guy here. On the first string. So instead of just strumming the chords, it actually sounds like Stairway to Heaven at that point. He does variations on that. But this all kind of happens... Right, his little vocabulary where he can play chords, and then he's got notes that are within the scale, right? And buttons, and he's just using the ninth on these, right? But if you wanted to play around with this idea, right? What I'm doing is I'm basically taking like the A chord, and I've got the note he does use for the melody note, which is the ninth, and there's the sixth, and there's also the fourth. So you have all of those to make parts with. Right, and right there, I'm basically just taking notes out of the minor pentatonic and that ninth. And you're just playing it against the chord. So you hold the chord, and you play the rest of the stuff against it, right? And that's, to me, that's key to actually, you know, a lot of that Hendrix like lead rhythm guitar sound is basically knowing where the chord is, but then also knowing where notes are that work melodically within the scale. And in this case, like with the minor chord, right, you could make this kind of a lead melody scale. You know, if we start from the first string, we got the 9 and we got the minor third. Right, so you got all those notes. Right, you've got the minor 7 right there on the 12th fret. So I'm barring at the 9th fret. Right, you've got the if we're in C sharp minor, that's going to be the 4th. Right, so you're not going to stand the note, but it makes a great melody note. There's the root. Right, so then like the little wing component of this, right, on the 4th string, you've got to note a whole step up from the note here. So that's the 5th, that's the 6th. Am I in the right key? No, I'm in the wrong key. Minor 7, root, and then 9 right there. Right, and you're playing those notes on the 4th string while letting the note on the 3rd string ring. Right, so you can make melodies just on that chord there. Same thing with that's a major chord. You've got all those notes right there as well. All right, that's a lesson for another time. I've done lessons on like the Hendrix rhythm playing in the past, and everybody, there's a million of them online. I probably should kind of refigure out how to teach it. A lot of what I'm doing on this channel right now is going through and trying to figure out more efficient ways and more effective ways of teaching stuff that I've done on my old channel. I don't want to just regurgitate my old lessons because I'm a different teacher now. And I think I can do some things better. But then also, you know, everybody teaches the same stuff. And for me, what's important, I think, is being able to package this material in a way that's a little bit easier for you to understand or is a little bit more useful, right? So, oops, actually, my messages thing is not scrolling as quick, so I missed some stuff here. I'm sorry, let me go back here. The period studio stuff with the V and the SG, mostly with Buddy and Billy. I'm gonna have to look for that. I'm just curious what it sounds like specifically. And Mike, the Villanova Junction. Okay, and is that off the Hendrix Blues album? I'm not as familiar. I'm like more familiar with the first couple studio albums, like most people. The posthumous albums that came out, I really haven't dove into that much. But now I'm starting to wonder maybe I should. I have to say, this small pedal board that I'm playing through is the one that I use for like reggae and calypso gigs, and this is like my pickup and go pedal board. And I don't have any of the drive pedals I was using last year when I was using this all the time. But the main components of this are the tuner, and I've got a Strymon El Capistan, and I forgot how much I love this El Capistan. New comments. Okay, my thing's not scrolling. You are correct, actually, with the Curtis Mayfield. I need to learn more Curtis Mayfield. Now, Curtis Mayfield, didn't he play in a different tuning, though, too? Is there something else about Curtis Mayfield that's a little bit... I think there's something going on there that's more than what familiar with. Anyway, but the El Caps, I remember how much I love this. And I've got, on my big pedal board, I've got the timeline, and the tape delay doesn't sound anything like this. But then I've discovered in the Eventide H9, they've actually got a really cool tape delay algorithm. So I might actually start using that on the bigger board, but I'm kind of enjoying the delay today. Yeah, Frusciante is like, I think he's the most effective thief of Hendrix. And I mean that like very affectionately. Like, if you really listen to Frusciante play on those Chili Peppers albums, but especially like on that Stadium Arcadium album, he plays some just great stuff that's obviously Hendrix influenced, but it's definitely him. There's the there's like a fuzz solo on the end of and it's just this great fat sound. I could totally imagine Hendrix playing that, but it's not something you've ever heard on one of his albums. But even like the, I don't remember the part. It's been a long time since I thought about that album. But yeah, Frusciante, I think he's one of those guys that like got Hendrix and just wasn't a carbon copy of him. I think he made his own music out of that, and it's really cool. I kind of wish this Red Hot Chili Peppers had somebody who would like tell them not to put out double albums, and they've always got great songs, but they put out twice as much music as they really should. And so the good stuff kind of gets lost, I think. But that's my editorial opinion about the Red Hot Chili Peppers. But yeah, you know what? Maybe I need to go back and do some Curtis Mayfield stuff too. Now you're kind of making me rethink. That's one of the cool things about the Saturday morning. So the Wednesday evening lesson is supposed to be a pretty like a set lesson based on what I'm doing for the week with the recorded video lesson. Saturday morning is still supposed to be a kind of a BS section, but I just woke up thinking, you know what, I want to talk about Hendrix today. But your guys' comments and questions actually kind of helped me figure out what I want to do. Getting the feedback's really important to me. I really, really do appreciate it. The jam from Woodstock after Purple Haze. Oh, so it's Mitchell and ooh, okay. I probably know what it is and don't know what the name of it is, so I'm going to have to go back and check it out. See? You guys are helping me. You know, it's funny, I was doing you can kind of go back and see what I've been teaching at the conservatory this week. So we've got Kiss by Prince, Jolene by Dolly Parton. That's not a conservatory tune. That's actually one of my my private students. This is a Celtic tune. I have one student who wants to learn more Irish music and playing in dadgad tuning. So we're playing the Butterfly. Here we're talking about 16th note strumming. This is actually going to come up in some of the lessons later this month, some of the pre-recorded lessons. What's going on here? Oh, okay. This was kind of a interesting way of looking at building blues licks. I'll give you guys kind of the quick way. I'll rebuild this before 10 o'clock here. One of my favorite ways to teach blues licks that are not like straight out of oh, I was actually going through this and you guys couldn't see any of it. Sorry guys. All right, so let's take a major chord. Here's the root. There's the root there, and then we've got the third of the chord and then the fifth of the chord. All right. So by themselves, not very. There's no melody in that. Right? But if we start adding things to that, then we actually start being able to make licks. One of the quickest things to do is let's approach the third from a half step below. All right, so I can take that third Now I've got a blues lick. Right. Right. That gets old after a while too. The next thing we can do is we can add the sixth of the scale in here. Right, that gives us a little bit more melody happening. Right, so there's 5, 6 root, and then I'm approaching the third from a half step below. And there. Right, that's just using that. Now we can add some of the stuff into other octaves. We'll give it the fifth here, the third, and then the root. All right, and then if we add those ideas, here's the flat 3 here. So now we've got in the lower octave. Right, so that's just with the flat third. We can also put the 6 here, right, which gives us this great. All right, and basically I'm playing that there's that 6 on the 4th string. All right, that's all just kind of like instant jump blues, right? Arpeggio, just add a few, 2 notes really. From that, right, so those are the like the kind of the instant notes. And then we can add notes that are helpful sometimes, like the minor 7. Now, my student was asking me like, hey, you know, the minor 7's in the chord most of the time. If we're playing over blues, it's like an A7 there. But the problem is that as soon as you play the 7 instead of the 6, you're just playing an arpeggio. Right? And that arpeggio is not interesting. Right? The 6th, that sounds like a melody, but that 7th is helpful. You know, I can hit that minor 7, right? Or I can connect chromatically, which means basically fill in a passing note between the root and the minor 7. There's the root, then chromatic down to the minor 7 there. Right? We can also, we'll do this in purple. Let's add the 4. All right, so this gives us kind of a note that's an enclosure. We'll play the 4, minor 3rd, and then the root. All right, so I'm making these lines. I'm not playing any blues licks. All right, that I would normally think of as. But I'm actually able to play these longs a little jazzier sounding, a little bit more swing sounding. If I was playing over but I'm actually able to, oops, not that, that's us right now. So if I was to bring up like a blues backing track. Oops. We'll do a couple of feels. So the obvious one is to play over it like a jazz blues. Oh my God, this is killing me. All right, so here's a jazz blues in B. Oh, where is it? Oh, I don't have it on here. Shoot. Okay. Bad example. Sorry, guys. B flat, blues, swing back. All right, so one of the keys, I'll use somebody else's here to actually be able to play over this. Fast for this early in the morning, right? But all of that kind of playing is me basically treating the arpeggios just like that. We'll talk about that more on the new Maui release. I have now, is that the Rainbow Bridge? As far as what I was just showing you guys, do you guys understand that or have questions? I can actually do kind of a longer lesson or explore that. I'm kind of running shorter on time right now, but if you guys have questions about it, I can kind of go over it. This is kind of a fun way to look at soloing that is not super scale based. It's more about knowing where the chords are, because I can take those ideas, right, and then take those same ideas and play them over. Like, here's the 4 chord, and then back to the 1 chord. It's really, I don't know, it's fun. To me, it's a big part of my sound. Oops. All right, cool. Oops. Oh. Sorry guys, I'm sitting here fiddling with the software again. At some point I'll actually learn it. Alright. If you guys don't have any other questions, I'll probably kind of let you guys go. I've been on for about 90 minutes. This was fun today. Do you guys like the way I did this today? I was kind of experimenting, but I like the idea of like taking a tune and pulling it apart and discussing how I would use it in a lesson, or how I would use it to teach myself. It's a little hard to do just because I don't want to run afoul of copyright stuff and get in trouble with YouTube. So I've got to kind of figure out the best way of doing that. But if this is something you guys liked, I can kind of work on being able to do it. Maybe Saturday mornings can be let's pick a tune and go through it. So it's up to y'all. Alright guys, I'm probably going to call it then. This will be available on replay. Hope you enjoyed it. Actually, I had fun this morning. I gotta teach some other students some actual private lessons here this morning, so I gotta get going. Take care, alright?